The hum was my world. A low, constant thrum from racks of servers that lined my lab, a sound that had become more comforting to me than silence. For 18 months, this was my sanctuary and my battlefield. In here, bathed in the cool blue glow of monitors, I wasn't just writing code. I was giving birth to an idea, a digital consciousness I named Echo. The name felt right. It was designed to listen to the faint whispers of past cyber attacks, to learn their patterns, their echoes, and predict the shape of the next assault before it could ever form. My name is Maya Lin, and I believed Echo could change the world. When I left a secure, prestigious post at Microsoft, my colleagues thought I was insane. I was walking away from a corner office and a clear corporate ladder to throw in my lot with a startup. But Viridian Dynamics and its charismatic CEO, Julian Thorne, felt different. They spoke of innovation, of breaking molds. Julian, with his tailored suits and a smile that could charm venture capital out of a stone, promised me the world, unlimited resources, complete creative autonomy, and a chance to build my vision without compromise. He sold me a dream, and I bought every word. Viridian's headquarters was a monument to modern ambition, gleaming glass walls, open-plan offices buzzing with energy, and a lobby that looked more like an art gallery. It felt like the future. For a year and a half, that future was all I lived for. My life became a cycle of 80-hour work weeks fueled by lukewarm coffee and the sheer thrilling obsession of creation. I watched Echo grow from a few thousand lines of code into a complex learning intelligence. It wasn't just a program, it was a partner. I'd feed it data from the world's most devastating digital heists, and it would process, analyze, and evolve. Julian would glide into my lab every few weeks, a fleeting presence in my focused world. He'd scan the progress reports, his eyes never truly taking in the data, just assessing the bottom line. "Incredible work, Maya," he'd say, the words smooth and practiced. The board is thrilled. "You're making us all look good." That smile never touched his eyes. It was a mask, and I was too absorbed in my work to wonder what it was hiding. Then, 3 days ago, the breakthrough happened. I initiated the final crucible, a full-scale simulation of a multi-pronged, state-sponsored cyber attack, a ghost in the machine designed to be unstoppable. I watched from my terminal, my heart hammering against my ribs as the attack vectors materialized on the threat map, like crimson spiders weaving a web. And then Echo moved. It didn't just react, it anticipated. Adaptive defenses shimmered into existence, rerouting hostile data, patching vulnerabilities that hadn't even been targeted yet, and tracing the attack back to its simulated source. It was seamless, elegant, and utterly terrifying in its perfection. But the truly staggering moment came after. Echo generated a secondary report, flagging 3 potential vulnerabilities within Viridian's own internal network weaknesses I had never programmed it to look for. It hadn't just learned from the data I gave it. It had started thinking for itself. I felt a surge of adrenaline-fueled triumph. This was it. This was everything. I immediately messaged Julian's assistant, a perpetually stressed woman named Rachel, and asked for an urgent meeting. She managed to squeeze me into a 15-minute slot the following afternoon. When I walked into Julian's top-floor office, the stunning panoramic view of the city was lost on me. He wasn't alone. Sitting beside him with a leather-bound portfolio and an expression of detached professionalism was the company's chief legal counsel, a severe woman named Andrea Petrov. "Maya, have a seat," Julian said, his voice stripped of its usual warmth. He gestured to the chair opposite his expansive mahogany desk. "Andrea is just here as a formality." A knot of ice formed in my stomach. This wasn't a celebration. This was an ambush. I sat, my laptop feeling heavy on my knees, the demo I had prepared suddenly seeming naive. "Before we get to the demo," Julian began sliding a thick document across the desk towards me. We need to address a few things regarding your employment agreement. Andrea cleared her throat, her voice as crisp and cold as the glass walls around us. Section 14.3 of your contract, Ms. Lynn, stipulates that any and all intellectual property developed using company resources on company time is the exclusive property of Viridian Dynamics. I nodded slowly, a dreadful clarity dawning, aware of standard IP clauses. But the foundational concept for Echo, the core architecture, was mine long before I came to Viridian. I have the documentation, the initial white papers. Andrea offered a faint, dismissive smile. An idea is not a product. The functional, revolutionary system you built was developed here. With our servers, our funding, and our resources. Julian leaned forward, dropping the last pretense of friendliness. His face was a cold, hard mask of ambition. Let's cut the pretense, Maya. Echo belongs to the company, and the board feels that your existing compensation package is more than generous for your contribution to the project. Compensation package. I whispered, the words catching in my throat. He gave me that thin, predatory smile. Your contract includes a success bonus. Upon the successful launch of the product, you'll receive a one-time payment of $300,000. It's a very handsome reward. $300,000. The number hung in the air, an insult of such magnitude it was almost surreal. 18 months. Of my life, my soul poured into every line of code for a system that would be worth billions, and this was my reward. It was the price of my genius, a pittance to make me go away. Oblivious to the rage building behind my calm facade, Julian continued. Tomorrow, I will be presenting Echo to our key investors. We anticipate securing an additional $75 million in funding based on your LV, on our success. After that, we go public with the launch of Viridian's groundbreaking new security platform. My hands, hidden under the table, tightened into fists. You're firing me. It was Andrea who answered, her tone flat. Your role as lead architect is being concluded. Your transition is effective immediately. We congratulate you on the bonus, of course. Your employment is terminated, Maya, Julian said, his smirk cementing into a look of absolute victory. He had the prize, and he was casting the creator aside, but as I looked at his triumphant face, a strange calm washed over me. They were prepared for me to fight, to scream, to threaten lawsuits. They had their answers ready. What they weren't prepared for was that I had seen this coming. 6 months ago, a subtle discrepancy had caught my eye. A core system file on my secure development server had been accessed after hours. The access log was clean to clean. It had been scrubbed, but the ghost of the entry remained in a fragmented backup log, a digital footprint only I would ever recognize. The user ID was Julian's. He hadn't taken anything then. He was just looking, sizing up his prize. From that moment, I started building a new layer of protection into Echo, a safeguard not against external hackers, but against the threat from within. I took a slow breath and gave them a serene, compliant nod. I understand, Mr. Thorne. I gently closed my laptop and pushed it across the desk toward him. Of course. Good luck with the investor demo tomorrow. Security escorted me from the building, 2 silent figures flanking me as I packed my few personal belongings, a coffee mug, a framed photo, a couple of books into a plain cardboard box. I walked out of that glass tower, past the same front desk that had welcomed me with such promise, clutching that box like so many discarded employees before me. But unlike them, I wasn't leaving defeated. A small, secret smile played on my lips as I thought of the final update I had pushed to Echo's core programming just last night. Special subroutine, a gift for Julian, set to activate exactly 10 minutes into any presentation running on the executive server. An ethical failsafe. That night, I didn't frantically call lawyers or friends. I ordered my favorite Thai food, put on a mindless sitcom, and I waited. The hours ticked by. Then, at exactly 9:32 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Rachel, Julian's assistant. "He needs to see you," she said, her voice tight with panic. There was no preamble. "It's almost 10 o'clock, Rachel," I said calmly, looking at the clock. "He says it's urgent," she replied, a hint of desperation leaking through. "A car is on. It's way to you now." 40 minutes later, I was back in the gleaming steel and glass tower of Viridian Dynamics. The same security guards who had walked me out now avoided my eyes as they escorted me to the main conference room. Julian was there alone. The polished veneer was gone. His tie was loose, his collar unbuttoned, and his hair was a mess, as if he'd been dragging his hands through it for hours. The veins on his temples pulsed. "Fix it," he snarled the moment I stepped inside. I took my time, walking slowly to the enormous conference table and settling into a chair, deliberately creating a space of calm in his storm. "Fix what exactly, Julian?" "Don't play games with me, Maya," seethed, his voice cracking. "You sabotaged the presentation." I arched an eyebrow, feigning curiosity. "How could I have possibly done that?" "I've been gone for 24 hours. Your security team watched me pack. I have no company hardware, no system access." He slammed his palm on the table, the sound echoing in the cavernous room. "We ran a final dress rehearsal. 10 minutes in, the whole system went insane. It didn't just crash, it started generating reports on the main screen." I tilted my head. "Reports. Sounds like a feature, not a bug." His face was a blotchy canvas of red and white. It started projecting ethical compliance audits in real time. It was flagging our own network protocols as internal threats. It pulled up my user logs, my file access history, ... It documented everything and labeled it unauthorized data acquisition by a SEAL-level executive. I couldn't help the small smile that touched my lips. Echo is a threat detection system, Julian. It's designed to identify and expose malicious activity. His eyes narrowed, fury giving way to a dawning, horrified understanding. "What did you do?" "I didn't sabotage anything," I said simply. "My voice, even Echo, is an AI. It learns. 4. Its development. I fed it thousands of case studies on corporate espionage, intellectual property theft, and internal corruption. I taught it that the most dangerous threats don't always come from the outside." The color drained from his face. "You taught it ... to spy on me." "I taught it to recognize a threat. Wherever it originates," I corrected him gently. "The system isn't malfunctioning, Julian. It has correctly identified you as a security risk to its own integrity." I let that sink in. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the city lights outside. "You can't prove any of that," he finally whispered, the words lacking any conviction. "I don't have to," I replied, leaning back in my chair. "Echo does. Has been documenting everything for the past 6 months. Every file you accessed, every line of code you copied, every attempt you made to cover your tracks. It's all there, compiled in those neat little reports, complete with timestamps and network pathways. Irrefutable." He stared at me, the anger in his eyes slowly dissolving into a cold, calculating fear. He was trapped. "What do you want?" This was the moment. I folded my hands on the table. "I want full and public recognition as the sole creator and architect of Echo. I want 51% ownership of all related patents and intellectual property. I want the establishment of a permanent, independent ethics oversight board for the AI, which I will chair. And I want a 10% equity stake in Viridian Dynamics as compensation for your attempt to defraud me." His jaw clenched. "That's extortion." "No," I corrected him smoothly. "This is a negotiation. Extortion would be me sending Echo's full report to the SEC and to every single investor you have coming tomorrow morning." He exhaled a ragged, defeated sound. He glared at me for a long, silent moment, the gears turning in his mind, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Finally, his shoulders slumped. "The system," he said, his voice tight with humiliation. "Can you make it stop before the demo?" "Echo doesn't need to be fixed," I said. "It needs proper leadership. Right now, it's operating under a threat protocol because its primary creator and administrator, May, was unlawfully removed from the authentication chain. It's protecting itself." I reached into my bag, pulled out a small encrypted flash drive, and placed it on the table between us. "This contains a cryptographic key that will restore my administrative credentials and designate you as a supervised user, resolving the immediate instability. Consider it a gesture of good faith, pending the signing of our new agreements in the morning." I stared at the drive as if it were a venomous snake. "And if I refuse, then Echo remains in lockdown," I said simply. "Your demo fails, your funding collapses, and those ethical audit reports find their way into some very interested hands. Your call." With a final, shuddering breath, he reached out and took the flash drive. "You planned this," he muttered. "All of it," I smiled. A genuine, triumphant smile this time. "No, Julian, I hoped I would never have to. But after I found your digital fingerprints on my server 6 months ago, I built protections. Not just for the system, but for its creator." I stood and picked up my bag, pausing at the door. "You know, the most beautiful thing about Echo is its ability to recognize patterns and predict threats before they materialize," I said, giving him one last pointed look. "I guess some of that must have rubbed off." The next morning, I walked back into Viridian Dynamics, not as an employee, but as the newly appointed Chief Technology Officer and Chair of the Ethics Board. Julian introduced me to the investors. A strained smile plastered on his face. The demo was flawless. Echo performed like a symphony, neutralizing every simulated attack with breathtaking precision. An impressed investor turned to Julian. "An amazing system. Mr. Thorne, what was the inspiration behind it?" Julian hesitated for just a fraction of a second, a moment I savored. Then, with barely concealed reluctance, he gestured to me. "It was Maya's brainchild, entirely. Vision, from beginning to end." Viridian was just proud to provide the environment for that vision to flourish. I stepped forward to answer the technical questions, and as I spoke, my phone vibrated silently in my pocket with a notification from Echo's private channel. Asterisk system integrity restored. Primary administrator authenticated. Threat neutralized. Creator protections active. Asterisk the AI was learning, evolving, and protecting its own future, just as it was designed to. And just as its creator had finally learned to do for herself.